Good evening, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman, and welcome to Dissonant Dispatch. It is Monday, February 19th, 2024. And I have what I hope will be an interesting show for you tonight. Before we get started, please go ahead and like and share this broadcast. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing and click the notification bell to be notified when I make new content. If you're interested in what's going on in American education right now, that is what I cover. And I would be honored and grateful if you would follow along. Please put your comments in the chat. I will do my level best to respond to them in clusters. So I won't necessarily address anything but a super chat immediately. And everything else I will get to as I can, but I will make a good faith effort to get to as many of the comments as I possibly can, especially those that are questions. And again, good faith questions, please. Not, why are you so ugly and old? I get that a lot. Anyway, so today, what we're going to do is take a look at one district. And you might be tempted to say, but Deb, how can we extrapolate across the country or to our districts from this one district and take all this as, representative of anything? How do I know this has any relevance to me? Well, I can't be 100% sure because I'm not literally in your district, but I can tell you I've looked at so many of them and they all look really similar. So I'm inviting you to follow along with me and you can check. You can go through some of the same steps that I went through. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. I see everybody in the chat. Hi, hi, hi. I'm so glad you're here. You can follow along and check for yourself. So if you have a laptop handy or your phone, whatever you're sort of not watching this on, like some other device, I would suggest you bring up your district's homepage. I would also suggest you go to their X account. And if you know your child's teacher, like their name, or if they have multiple teachers, pick some of them, and just open up separate tabs in a browser for their X accounts. Don't dive into it just yet, but just kind of, go find them while I'm getting ready here. And then you can follow along and you can see if you notice some of the same things. The reason I am suggesting this and taking you through this process is that nothing I'm going to explain to you is really being hidden. It's like hidden in plain sight. But if you don't know what you're looking at or you don't know exactly what to look for, things can look normal, even good. Like you can look at it and go, what's wrong with that? And you might do that tonight. You might look at some of the things I show you and say, yeah, come on, that's fine. So what I hope to do is put at least a question mark in your mind about, is it though? Is it really? And I want you to come back to a couple of solid facts that we know. And it's probably true of your district too. Too high a percentage of kids are graduating high school unable to read proficiently. Too high a percentage of kids are graduating high school unable to do math proficiently. Science, it's even worse. Civics, it's worse still than that. In addition, we see high rates of mental illness and suicide amongst children, much higher than historically we've ever seen. We are seeing incredible numbers of fights inside the school and outside the school amongst young people. So we're seeing things not look so good in terms of our young people, K through 12, and then even going into college. We're seeing people on the streets protesting, getting very angry, and saying things that would have shocked us just a few years ago about what they're okay with, what students as young as, middle school are okay protesting and saying about their fellow students or about their parents. The treatment of adults from young people is really poor. And yet, what you will see are some smiling, happy faces. You'll see the inside of classrooms. You'll see some assignments, some work. And I ask you to look more closely and think, how is this that I'm looking at actually advancing the cause of learning and maturation in my child? Is this a really great opportunity for the school to showcase something or for people to work towards some goal out there in WEF and UNESCO land, but it actually isn't having a lot of positive effect on my child's brain and their learning. So things can look good, or people can look busy. They can look like they're engaged. That's the fancy word for busy doing something that looks constructive. But think back to your own school days and what they looked like and felt like and how much work product there was and what the handwriting on it looked like and things like that. And then look at what you see that I'm going to show you. And you tell me if you think it's serving the purpose of educating your child, or is it perhaps a little slanted towards molding your child into a type of person, the type of person who is very dialed into emotions, not just theirs, but other people's. The type of person who is outer directed and thinks that their role in life is to fix problems, solve problems, change the world, and cater to other people's needs. And I'm not suggesting that they never be concerned with that. I'm just saying that maybe that might not be their number one focus. So you decide looking at this, what are the priorities? Now, I did title this, what the 2030 agenda looks like in the classroom. So I thought it'd be worthwhile because you may have heard of the 2030 agenda, but you might not really know what it is. So I thought, hey, let's take a look at it and read through just a little bit of it to give you a taste before we look at the material from the school, so we can frame it and you can see when you see things from the school that talk about sustainability, talk about goal number 1 or SDG goals or 2030 explicitly, you can know what they're talking about. So let's take a look at the site itself. United Nations Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Now, I think it's important for you to see the words, to see what I'm reading rather than see a big me. So I'll do this. Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, Department of Economic and Social Affairs. Think about that. There's such a thing as the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. Like, they actually have a United Nations department of that. It's kind of creepy that you might have one centralized agency concerning itself with how we interact socially. Here's what the preamble says. This agenda is a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. It also seeks to strengthen universal peace and larger freedom. We recognize that eradicating poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, is the greatest global challenge and an indispensable requirement for sustainable development. I'm going to stop there. So far, they have not defined poverty, never mind global poverty. Poverty in the United States versus poverty in Mumbai probably looks a little different. So eradicating poverty seems like a strange goal to set when it could be different in every country, and what people might be happy and satisfied and healthy and whatever with in terms of not feeling they're impoverished, might be somebody else's still poor. So I find it very interesting. They make this gross generalization across the whole planet. I just thought I'd point it out. All countries and all stakeholders, that doesn't include you, by the way. That's not the little people. Stakeholders are the people up at the top, the leaders. Acting in collaborative partnership will implement this plan. Did you elect the stakeholders? Did you choose them? Did you have any say in who they would be? And they're going to be they're in collaborative partnership. They're collaborating to decide how the world should be transformed. Okay? Just keep that in mind. And they'll implement the plan. We are resolved to free the human race from the tyranny of poverty and want to heal and secure our planet. Again, they haven't really defined how the planet is sick and in need of healing. We can talk about global warming. We could talk about climate change. We could talk about the polluted oceans. There are a lot of aspects that we might all agree are things about the planet that need our attention. If we are conservationists, care about nature, care about preserving resources for the next and future generations. But they're talking about healing the planet. It's sort of anthropomorphizing it as if it's sick and we need to heal it. Well, there are lots of parts of it that aren't sick at all. They're doing just fine. So again, what does that mean? We are determined to take the bold and transformative steps which are urgently needed to shift the world. onto a sustainable and resilient path. Again, we don't know what that means. Do they know what a sustainable and resilient path would look like? Because that's where they want to take us. It seems like I would like to know the, this destination I'm being taken to and my kids are being taken to. And so a definition might be helpful. As we embark on this collective journey, we only live the one life ourselves alone, but we're on this journey collectively by their decree. We pledge that no one will be left behind. What if I want to be left? What if I don't want to go on this journey? Just drop me off over there. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets, which we are announcing today, demonstrate the scale and ambition of this new universal agenda. Agenda has a capital A, which is curious. They seek to build on the Millennium Development Goals and complete what these did not achieve. So the Millennium Goals didn't work. Now we're gonna have the Sustainable Development Goals. What are we gonna have when that doesn't work? Right? They just keep evolving. Nobody stops to say maybe we shouldn't be doing this because it doesn't seem to work. And things are noticeably worse, by the way, in many parts of the world right now than they were before. They seek to realize the human rights of all and to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. So men are presumed to already be everything's perfect for men, all everywhere. There's no place where men are enslaved. There's a draft. People are, pressed into service, Ukraine, or Russia or any of these other countries like North Korea. Men just fine. No problems at all. It's just the women and the girls. Got it. Okay. They are integrated and indivisible and balance the three dimensions of sustainable development, the economic, social, and environmental. So far, I don't know what you guys think. Is this a trip you wanted to go on or wanted your kids to be taken on? Did you get to vote on this? And really more importantly, did you get a say in the government deciding that your school would suddenly be oriented and your education would be suddenly oriented towards this? So they have these goals, the 17 goals, but I want to go through where's the one that actually has the goals? Okay, so we have SDG knowledge. And let's see. I wanted to find the education one specifically. So they have all these different, climate action, food security, etc. But there is one specifically about education. I can't remember which goal it is. So I'm going to just go ahead and look it up. Because look, they have education for green jobs, education innovation, education and academia stakeholder group. So there are, and it's all tied to these different groups. But what I wanted to find was the SDG circle. Here we go. So they have all these events. There it is. Quality education is goal number 4. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. For all is a term you need to familiarize yourself with. That is communism. Let's just dispense with all the chit chat. That's what it is. Inclusive and equitable is coming before quality. So they're saying inclusive and equitable quality education. That takes precedence. In fact, if you read some of the materials written by some of the top consultants in education these days, like West Ed, which I posted about on X today, you will find that they don't consider it a quality education if they don't meet their equity goals. So it doesn't matter what else is going on in the school. If they haven't achieved equity, it's not considered quality. And here we have the world is falling behind in achieving quality education. And then when we look at what they're looking at, how many kids are out of school? So simply not being in school is considered a bad thing. What if they're learning at home? 300 million students lack basic numeracy. This is a problem, numeracy and literacy. Only 1 in 6 countries achieve universal secondary school completion target. Maybe they're going to work. And again, I'm not saying that kids shouldn't get an education. I'm just saying that the priority seems to be having kids in school as long as possible. And Okay, basic literacy numeracy, that's very important for sure. 300 million people who don't have it. Guess what? A lot of them are in this country. But simply finishing high school or finishing secondary school is not necessarily a measure of whether you have had a decent education. We need to stress that. They're making it a one-to-one thing. If you didn't go to school or didn't finish school, then for sure you didn't get an education. Low and lower middle income countries face a nearly 100 billion annual financing gap to reach their education targets. Sounds a lot like money. Another thing you should listen to when you hear about equity in education is equity equals money, that you're getting the same amount of money. But where the money goes is not necessarily to improving the outcomes academically. It certainly increases the amount of money that each school has, but that doesn't necessarily lead to learning. And then they say the pandemic caused learning losses. The pandemic didn't cause anything. The pandemic policies of closing schools, and even that, I would argue, didn't cause the learning loss. What happened was it caused us to recognize the lack of learning that was happening before the pandemic, which was already on a downward trajectory in a big way, and in large part because of these goals. So now that I've showed you that, I'm going to take you straight to the website of the district in question, the Cherry Hill district. But before we get started, let me take a quick look at our comments to see what y'all had to say about that. So, Ego Brain says the outcomes of our policies are terrible. Let's push those policies harder. Schools, probably. Yes, and definitely the UN, for sure. Sophia says, just because it looks good doesn't mean it is good. Please keep that in mind when I show you things. Let them define freedom too. Right. So that really should be for us and for our children. And we should have the freedom to be able to do it. I'm sorry that you were interrupted by commercial. Unfortunately, I need to put advertisements on these in order to keep the lights on. I do apologize. James Lindsay posted a great talk about this today. Collectivism is the goal. I'm with you. Let me off their bandwagon. Yes, it is the goal. And you will see in some of the things that I'm showing you, well, what looks like happy, smiling faces, having a good time, go take a picture in China, go take a picture even in North Korea. You're going to see that. That's not a measure of whether something is good. J.S. Stewart says communism rebranded. Absolutely. Everything I've showed you and those SDG goals and the Agenda 2030, which means that by 2030, that's what they want to get to, is having achieved those goals. You think this is a little lofty? That's what they want. Thankfully, the board of Apple is advertising against the DEI junk. Well, I haven't seen that, but thank you for letting me know. I will take a look because I use Apple products. Ego Brain says, so their goal is not met until we're all equally stupid. Well, at least till we're all equally something. And unfortunately, it's a lot easier to take things away or push things down than lift people up. It's much, much easier. We can eradicate poverty if there's no one to compare us to who is rich, except for the stakeholders, of course. They are different. But in terms of us plebs, if we all have, we will own nothing and be happy, it might be because we all have an equal amount of nothing. And let's see, just the last couple. Texas Sheep Lady says a friend dropped out of high school and his first diploma was for his master's degree. So I'm glad you pointed that out. As I said, having a quality education does not necessarily mean it was provided inside of a government school. So that's, just to set the stage. So here's Cherry Hill Public Schools. Now, a quick background on Cherry Hill Public Schools. Cherry Hill, New Jersey is outside of Philadelphia. It has typically, been known as a very good, excellent school district. The kind you would pay a lot of money in extra, higher taxes, higher home prices, etc., to live in this district. And people did. Parents would move to Cherry Hill for the schools. Many people did. For generations, they would go there because it was known for its good schools. It's in close proximity to Philadelphia and the University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education. So there was probably a perception that by being close to that and the various, and the teachers that would come out of there, they could get first dibs on some of the better teachers, properly educated, or so they thought, from an Ivy League institution. And the reputation was off the charts. And for quite a while, I would say it was as earned as a public school's good reputation could be. I would suggest that one of the reasons that it had such a good reputation was the population of the people there, their ability to shape the education through their school board and their input, and having the population come from the local area. In other words, they lived right there. They weren't being bussed in from somewhere else. They weren't being brought in from other districts to pursue any kind of equity because this rich district was hoarding it all to themselves. Over the years, as you can imagine, things changed because it's not equitable for just some people to have this excellent school district, which of course they're paying for in many, many ways. It's not fair. It's not equitable. So we start combining things. We take even the schools within the district that had different populations from neighborhoods, and we start making them move on buses to different areas to, make sure we sprinkle around the different kids so we don't have one high school that's doing really, really well and one that isn't. No discussion about why one high school is doing better than the other, or what are the behaviors of the people, the parents, the teachers, the policies, et cetera. We're just going to mix them up, and surely the good will rub off, or surely whatever is good that, it's going to be redistributed and everything will be fine. Well, predictably, because they went about it in a communist redistributionist manner, things have gotten worse across the board. Now, as you've probably seen, we have, Black History Month is big right now. Cherry Hill is one of the first districts. It's certainly the first on the East Coast that I know of, and it's definitely the first in New Jersey to mandate African American history for graduating seniors. They can't graduate without taking this class. Or African American studies. I'm sorry, not history, studies. And we'll take a look at what passes for that these days, or some of the things that the teachers and the consultants and the professors that come to speak bring into the district that, you might roll your eyes and say, well, that's sort of loosely related to African American studies, but not really. I'm not really seeing it. And what you'll realize, it's a lot closer to liberation ethnic studies or ethnic liberation studies on the West Coast than it is to just a lot more Black history, for example. It's much closer to that. Heavy influence of BLM and so forth. So we just, you scroll through the website. If you're looking on your own, you can do the same. One of the things that you're going to want to do on your website, as I do with theirs, is you just type in equity, and you will pull up a lot of the different things that have to do with equity, intervention and referral services, occupational and physical, blah, blah, blah. And you start pulling up things to look at what equity is and what they do and so forth. District, blah, blah, blah. So you can spend some time on your website and find that out. But I encourage you to do that. The next thing I did was to try to figure out the history of how have things changed in this district. And I look at the NJEA. So for your state, go look for what is the union that covers my state. If your state schools are not part of the NEA or the AFT literally, you probably still have a state teachers association. And the only difference might be that your state teachers association does not do collective bargaining, but they still have political influence. It's just different. They don't have to literally sit down and have a contract negotiated with them the way they do in the states where they dominate. The NJEA Equity Alliance cadre has carried out more than 30 trainings over the past year. Please note the date, 2019. These trainings have ramped up. Okay. So they have been very active in New Jersey. And in addition to being close to University of Pennsylvania, they're very close to Rutgers. Rutgers is a hotbed of activity for sort of Black Lives Matter, Black liberation ideology, critical race theory, restorative justice narratives, abolitionist narratives, meaning like, let's abolish the police, let's abolish let's abolish school. I presented that in one of the shows, I think it was last week or the week before. So the NJEA comes in and starts doing trainings, pulling out statistics about racial discipline gaps, and this is bad, and oh, we have a gap, and too many kids. There's segregation in New Jersey, don't you know? And their admission is to advance and protect the rights, benefits, and interests of members, blah, blah, blah. So 2019, they're offering trainings in equity and all of this. It shouldn't be a shocker then that we get to things today like restorative justice. And I'll show you some of the restorative justice from there, but let's continue. They also have This gentleman, this principal, this is from 2021. There he is with his mask on. 5 years ago, so prior to 2021, so he's still there. Dr. Dennis Perry arrived at Cherry Hill as a new principal. He had a plan. He told Eastside in his first in-depth interview back in October 2016, he was here to stay, etc. His goal has been equity. One of the biggest things that he came to do was to to have equity be at the center of what he was doing. He sees himself as an instructional leader, teacher of teachers. Um, he says there are three big takeaways that continue to inform what we do. First is that learning is social. So they're focusing very much on the social and emotional components of learning. Perry reiterated the importance of capitalizing on students' natural tendencies. Okay, sounds good. Students learn best when they're interacting with others. So you're going to see a lot of like milling around the classroom, kids facing each other, a lot of that sort of social learning, group learning, project-based learning, student-led learning. And then he says, we need to focus on cognitively engaging students. Again, with the myth that if the kids aren't having fun and facing each other and doing all these fun activities and projects, they're not engaged. Your brain can be engaged in something you're interested in. You can be absolutely silent and sitting by yourself reading a book. So that is something parents might read and think, oh, yeah, they're more cognitively engaged when they're doing these projects. No, not necessarily at all. In fact, they might be sitting there staring into space, look up and smile for the camera, and the other two kids are working on the project. And he even says, I'm very good at appearing like I'm listening to you. So as a response to this problem, he's worked with staff on ways to have students engage with their learning and make their thinking more visible. So he's very concerned about work product, put it up on the walls, put it up here, put it up there. And that doesn't necessarily mean anyone learned anything. Doing a lot of presentations, project-based learning, doesn't mean that anything sunk in. And I would strongly encourage you, if you're interested in why I say this is a bad approach and probably contributing to the downward trend in their academic results, go watch the show that I did with Daniel Buck about these teaching trends that are actually making learning harder. He's wrong. I also want you to remember that people become principals not because they're the greatest teachers ever. Some of them were never teachers, but because they're good administrators, politicians, managers, things like that. Maybe they're good at it, but not because they are excellent classroom teachers. Every so often you get a principal who has been one, but that is not a prerequisite. So just keep that in mind. Then he says, third and finally, all of our students need to feel as though they belong here. Now they're talking about one high school. They need to feel as though they belong here. Not they need to be proficient. They need to be successful. They need to graduate knowing what they need to know. They need to feel like they belong. And I want that to mean something for all our students. When students feel like they don't belong in a class, whether due to the presence of cliques or the approach of a teacher, they're not as available for learning. He takes a truth that if a kid feels a little out of it or awkward, they might be distracted, they might not be able to pay attention. That is true. That does not then follow that the school can act upon the children to make them feel like they belong. There's no activity. There's not even a policy really that you can put in place to change that. The best you can do is deal with some of the things that are literally exclusionary when they pop up and make sure kids aren't being rude and nasty and treating people poorly, and be very, very consistent and structured. You can probably help with that. And at least the awkward kid can get a good academic education. But there's really not much you can do to make sure everybody feels included that won't probably exclude somebody else. And we've seen that happen. So he talks about, inclusive environments, et cetera. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want you to get a sense of Dr. Perry, what his priorities are. So then let's go to, so now what I want to go to are some of the bookmarks, the things that I've bookmarked from the district specifically. This is the next step. Once you have figured out where your kids' teachers' social media accounts are, and it's not spying. All the people like, I want to put cameras in the classroom. Like, they're there. The teachers are taking pictures. Okay. You might be able to find all you need to know. just by what they put out on their own. I mean, I hope so, but okay. So here we have one of the teachers, and S I believe means students. I think it's just shorthand for students. So here what we see, the students at one of the middle schools, Beck Middle School, on week 3 of Goals Project and New Jersey Sustainability Challenge. So when you look at these pictures, what do you see? They're sitting at a Chromebook looking at a screen. Okay. She takes a picture. We can't really see what's on the screen, but if you were to look at your child's Chromebook, if they're allowed to bring it home or ask them, what they were working on, they might be able to tell you about this, or they might not. But they look engaged, don't they? Don't they look engaged? They look like they're busy. They look like they're doing something. They're not writing. We don't know if they're reading or not. They're looking at a screen. He looks like he's a little bit asleep, just to be honest. But they're looking at a screen. They may be typing something or highlighting something. But a couple things to note. Look how many tabs are open. That's a lot of distraction for a child. On top of that, we also know that, they aren't owning any of that. They're not producing it. By not taking notes and writing anything down, the retention isn't going to be there. The retention isn't, your working memory does not have the ability, especially at this age, to just read on a screen and retain all these details. You take notes. This is how you do it. Just like you're reading a book. In fact, it's more important to do when you're reading on a screen, even for adults, just so you know, because for whatever reason, we don't retain as much. And the likelihood is because of all the extra visual distractions and even the action of scrolling, that you have to scroll to keep going as opposed to turn a page. They still need to do more research, but we do know that human beings at all ages, do not retain as well when they read on a screen. They're doing their reading on a screen. These are middle school students. This is a sustainability project, whatever that is. So the teacher is not necessarily speaking or saying anything that's sort of indoctrinating them into this view that it is their goal to learn about, to save the world, or they need to participate in 2030. It's their assignment. They're probably reading it. If I had to guess, they're literally reading what the goals are for 2030. And in addition to that, containing so many subjective terms, I read it to you. Do you think they have the vocabulary when they don't read proficiently? All the data shows they don't read proficiently, even in this district. Could they possibly understand all of these subjective terms, or are they likely to come away from something like this feeling like, okay, so I'm supposed to read this, and here I am looking at the screen. Okay, I see a bunch of words. I don't really know what most of them mean. I certainly don't know the implications of what it would take to end poverty. I don't know 99% of the background knowledge of, history, geopolitics, economics, uh, even just food supply chain information to be able to digest this and understand what it means. But I read it, and the teacher takes a picture, like, isn't it fabulous how engaged they are? Here she is. She's just so excited. She's showing them. Here we have again the goals project. Classrooms working on 17 goals together. Do they look like they're working or kind of looking at screens together? And there's the teacher in the back of the room. And this is why I say, okay, so you put cameras in the classroom to record. What are you recording that isn't shown here? What else do you need to see? We see the Sustainable Development Goals there. That's communism. It's global communism. Okay. Now they have a research, problem statement, inclusivity, proposed solution, and then prototype. These are middle school students. They need to come up with a problem statement based on the 17 goals and something to do with inclusivity, and then have a proposed solution. Again, they don't read, most of them at grade level. How are they doing this? What are they exactly learning other than this is what I'm supposed to do in life? I'm supposed to focus my energy on inclusivity, sustainable development goals. My argument is that what it is in the classroom is about socially engineering these students to believe that education is about turning them into the kind of person who cares about the 17 development goals. And yes, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of them will be able to read well enough to that they will believe that it's their responsibility to literally solve some of them by coming up with something, and then maybe 1 or 2 will actually come up with something that may or may not be something useful, but they're not all walking out of there able to read proficiently, do math proficiently, and be able to just sort of function in the outside world. So it's mostly a social engineering project of what you're supposed to concern yourself with. What we could do is we could blow this up in the background, I suppose, and we could try to figure out what's on there. So if you see things on your kids, teacher social media, try to like blow it up and read what it is, and you might learn a lot. But this is what working on it looks like. Okay. And again, they might learn a lot about producing a PowerPoint presentation or something like that. But who's teaching them research? Where's the leadership here? Where is the teacher teaching anything? So there's that. Now let's look at her screen. So it looks like, if we look closely, that she's putting some pictures together in a presentation. And again, what she's going to get out of that most likely are the skills about making a presentation and dropping pictures in and so forth, and going and probably copy pasting language from something about something. If she comes up with original ideas, it's going to be out of her head from whatever she knows at the ripe old age of what, 6th to 8th grade. But we're solving the world's problems. Is that what you imagine middle schoolers should be doing? I don't have the answer for you. I know for me, the answer is no, but you have to decide for yourself. Here's some more. Beck Middle School simultaneously tackling goals, project SDG 2030, sustainable goals number 11, and the Sustainable New Jersey Climate Challenge. So again, we're in the classroom, team progress, everything's team. Where's individual achievement? EV grant, something. I can't even read the teacher's handwriting. Solar panels. These are assignments the kids are assigned to, but goal number 11. So they're teaching specifically to a goal. So if you thought your child was going to class to learn like history, science, the siloed subjects, and I'm not suggesting subjects should be siloed, but I think before you're going to tackle something like an SDG goal, maybe you should know some stuff from the siloed subject matter areas, background knowledge anyway. So that's those. I'm going to skip past some things and come back to them because I want to stay on these goals. Here we have an outing. Today, our students are not just visitors, but agents of change at the National Liberty Museum. No place for hate. They're wearing T-shirts. They're holding signs. They're telling the students that they are agents of change because they went on a field trip. So if you're wondering where young people got the idea that they're so powerful and that their voice matters so much that we need to hear it all the time, making pretty big demands of the planet and of us as adults and of their leaders and so on, this is part of why. This is how you create sort of young activists demanding things. You're an agent of change. You showed up wearing a T-shirt. So I'm sure they can't understand why people aren't doing exactly what they want because they showed up waving signs. And it probably makes them good and mad because they've been told how powerful they are for just doing that. Here's Cherry Hill School's official Twitter. We honor the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this day of service, January 15th, 2024, by acting on his words. Look at the words they pulled. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? That's what the public school is telling the children, that is life's most persistent and urgent question. Well, Ayn Rand would have a few things to say about that, as would I. If you taught this to my child in school, I would be furious. I can't speak for the rest of you. But no, I didn't put a child into this world to do for others. I certainly hope she's a nice person. I hope that she treats other people well. I hope that when she chooses people to be in her life as friends or loved ones, that she does, her best to take care of them and love them and so on. But no, I wouldn't say that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Ever. And I don't know when and where he said that. It's certainly pulled out of any kind of context. But even if he said it, not everything that great people say is worth teaching to children, especially out of context. But it does fit neatly with the 2030 agenda, doesn't it? What are you doing for others on the other side of the globe? Because you're an agent of change. Here it is, some more pictures, no place for hate. We have all the there's a conformity and a uniformity to this and a level of pride in the uniformity and conformity that's a little Soviet creepy, I got to tell you. I don't remember when I was in school, and you guys tell me what you remember. I don't remember our teachers all wearing a t-shirt for some kind of social change or some kind of social statement and then posing like it was the proudest day of their life that they were part of this collective effort. But this is where we are with this like, look, no place for hate. That you have to say this is concerning enough. Was it a place for hate before you put on the t-shirt? Do we need to say that it's no place for hate? Is it otherwise like so the message the kids get is unless I'm explicitly saying this is no place for hate, hate lives here, which is false. So then they're able to see other people, maybe someone like me or you or your kids, they don't wear the t-shirt. They don't hold up the poster or the slogan or that school doesn't have the posters. Those people, it's a very clever way to make people who simply are living their lives look hateful, look like they don't care. Same thing with Black Lives Matter, Black Square. Why didn't you put a black square? I don't want to put a black square. You don't think Black Lives Matter. This is that extended on and on and on and on. We're just going to keep putting symbols out there, collective. This is all about collectivism, and the kids are getting the message loud and clear. It's more like no room for individualism. Our Beck Middle School students are tackling real world obstacles, designing for Tom to offset some of his Parkinson's symptoms. These are middle school students. Tom has Parkinson's, which is heartbreaking, of course. Here they are eating a snack. I don't know what these kids are talking about. This kid here looks a little confused. They're on their computers. They're talking. He's in the back, just kind of staring into space. But we have a picture. They're helping somebody with Parkinson's. Are we sure they can all read and do math? Is this how they should be spending their time? And mind you, I don't think they should spend 8 hours a day with their face in the book and being bored, but that's not necessarily what would happen. Competency can be pretty exciting. What if they spent 2 hours a day doing that? I'm not seeing things come out of the school that show a lot of academic learning. I see a lot of time on screens and a lot of time just kind of in these little groups milling around. Here's another one. We're playing with circuits. We're on a computer. We're talking to each other. Are we actually fixing Tom's Parkinson's? Have they even learned a lot about Parkinson's? Do they know enough about the nervous system? Do they understand how the brain works? Do they understand any of the background information that might be relevant to helping someone with Parkinson's? Or are they playing with computers and electrical stuff? Hard to say. I don't know. I just look at the score. All I've got are the scores at the end of the year to show that these kids aren't reading very well. So I think this is putting the cart before the horse just a little bit. Same, we're all looking together at a screen. We're looking together at a screen. How would you ascertain that each of these 3 individual students learned something from this lesson, never mind something useful to their lives? And we're back again to the beginning. So I see pictures like this and I see teachers crowing about, just, SDG goals, brilliant minds at work. We're talking about team up to design, with Tom's needs in mind. And I'm just like, are we though? We don't know. She's smiling at the camera. Now, I also want to take a moment to talk about the fact that teachers are taking pictures of students and putting them on the public internet. Parents, if you were given a permission slip at the beginning of the year asking if it was okay to take pictures of your child for, any kind of purposes at school, etc., is this what you envisioned? That your precious little girl's face would be on that, so now random strangers are going to know that they don't know her by name, but they know what she looks like and what school she goes to. Don't they? They even know what person's class she's in. Would you do that? I don't do that with my own child's pictures. She doesn't even go to school, but I don't go putting her pictures all over like their face on public Twitter. So the teachers are taking do you think they're checking in the moment before they just, take it, post it, take it, post it? Who's given permission and who hasn't? And yet I bet there are parents out there who don't even check. Your kid could be like all over the internet by now. And with AI scraping all of this data, all of these images to feed the generative AI and create new images and God only knows what, your kid and her face is being fed into part of that. That's just an aside. That's just an aside. And here we are some more on the computers, on the computers. So as I've said before, especially with the discussion that's been going on about cameras in the classroom, here's cameras in the classroom. Have you discovered the hidden indoctrination? Do you know who to go and punish right now? I'm struggling here to explain to you why this is a bad idea, what we're looking at. I don't think if you watched endless hours of footage of this, that you would be alarmed. You'd be like, oh, okay, cool. They're working on a project. You have to actually analyze what they're doing and think about it and say, wait a minute. They're working on a project that, for all intents and purposes, looks like it's for show. Like, look what we did. Yay. Moving on. Like, what will they remember a week from now about this? Oh, cool picture of someone with little electrodes on a hand. What have they learned that they'll retain that's useful to them? So, again, I'm going to skip past some stuff and come back to it. Here's another thing from another teacher. Discipline is so much more than consequences that do not support the social and emotional development of our students. What if, through this new lens of discipline, we implemented the word experiences in place of consequences? What experiences does the student need to help him turn in work? What experiences does the student need to learn a better way to express his anger? Maybe those experiences are consequences. Maybe understanding that there's a connection between their actions and a reaction on the part of civilized society that would dissuade him from acting a certain way. And I'm not talking about violent punishment. I'm just talking about a consequence. But this is the kind of message that they're sending. It's like, well, what if this and this is part of sustainable development goals is everything is experiential. Everything is about feelings, everything's about empathy and so on. And bye-bye to the standards that we had before. And now we have fights and they can't seem to understand where the fights are coming from. Moving on with some more affective stuff. Here's another teacher. My kindergarten friends did an amazing job sharing about the varied foods they eat and had enthusiastic conversations with their peers during our second No Place for Hate project of the school year. I love their detailed lunch pictures. So again, we have an assembly, we have a little meeting about No Place for Hate. And what is the purpose of, look at how young these children are. What is the purpose of this? We're going to talk about lunch from home and how, as you listen to the story Lunch from Home on the next slide, think about how the children may feel about their foods and or cultures, especially when criticized or judged by their peers. Think about a time in your life when you felt similarly to how the children felt in the story. What is your connection? So we read a story about children feeling bad, about children picking on other children. This may or may not have ever happened to them. So, but let's put the idea in their head. Let's throw this out that this happens to someone somewhere. Let's do that. We'll read a story about kids getting along and so forth so they can see what that looks like. Let's read a story about kids not getting along and then ask them to think, well, how would you feel about this? Well, obviously, who's going to feel good about it, right? Listen respectfully to the story and think about how you can make a difference in our school community and in the world. Let me go back. Look how young they are. How are they making a difference in the world around lunch? Isn't that a bit heavy for little kids talking about lunch? I think it is. And especially under the banner of hate doesn't live here. We start with the premise that hate would live here, if not for this program, where we're going to talk about how it's our obligation to constantly stress how we don't hate anybody. Then we're going to read a story about kids bullying other kids about what's in their lunchbox. And I seem to recall somebody going, you have whole wheat bread, that kind of stuff. But it was like, whatever. I'm not scarred for life by it. You will learn early that some things matter and some things don't. We're telling kids they should, never have this experience. Thank you so much, Adrian, for the super chat. Bye. Thank you for coming. Um, so, what happened in the story to make the children only want to bring sandwiches for lunch? How would you feel if someone said unkind things about the food you were eating at lunch? What made the children decide to bring in the food that were from their own cultures again? How can you be an ally and stand up for others if you see they're being treated disrespectfully? So, again, the whole allyship, it's your obligation to be an upstander. That's something I've talked about in other shows in this district. You have to stand up, you have to speak up, you have to. There's a lot of responsibility to put on little kids about other people's feelings. So the overall message is you are not only not responsible for your feelings. Somebody says mean things about your lunch. Well, that's on 100% on them. And I mean, it is. It's on them that they said it. You shouldn't take it on, but it is on you if you react to it. That's on you. If you feel lousy, if you feel, ultimately you have some responsibility in that. That's not the lesson being taught here. Someone else in your class feels bad, you're responsible to go fix that. Pretty heavy stuff. Lots of altruism and other centricness. Um, then share what's in your lunch, et cetera, and so forth. And they draw pictures. Oh, look, I shared pictures of my lunch. It looks so innocent. It looks so sweet. I'm sure parents look at this and go, that's so adorable. Look, they do pictures of their lunch. But they may not realize that the underlying message that the kids got was you're responsible to make other people feel good about their lunch. That's a powerful message. And then, of course, it's a hop, skip, and a jump from you're responsible for someone else to have lunch. You're responsible for someone else to feel good about the lunch that they have that maybe you had to give them. Maybe you should give them your lunch instead of you eating your lunch because they feel bad. The most important thing for you to do, the most important urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Here's my lunch. I'll go hungry. Starting to catch on? Yeah, I hope so. Okay. This happens subtle. It's why it's called social engineering. It's not hit you over the head with a brick and tell you to do certain things. It is this slow drip every day, every like little message slid in there. That's what it is. I'm going to check in with the chat over here and see how y'all are reacting to this to see what's happening. So we coming over to Corporal Giro, a good way to hide failure. Yes, if you're talking about having the devices and not really having a lot of written work and not having books that come home, it's a good way to hide that you're not even teaching. J.S. Stewart, white people behave and are penalized. This is true. This is true. And people are going to call me racist for saying it, but it's true. Adrian said, very few will end up being good scientists. That's correct. You're putting the cart before the horse. There's so much observation and learning background information and vocabulary that needs to happen before you can be constructing solutions or even imagining solutions. Your imagination is, has only the raw stuff to work with that it knows so far. And you can keep adding to it. And it's amazing how much better your imagination gets when you know a bunch of things that are not imaginary. Texas Sheep Lady says, and the child comes away knowing they aren't able to change the world, so they are failures, which is, thank you for mentioning that. That was one thing I forgot to say. They, whether it's I'm not really a change agent or I didn't really invent anything, they understand that it's all hollow and shallow eventually, and they feel pretty empty and hopeless. And they realize at some point, it's different for every kid, that they don't really know anything. And it's very scary. And they can feel anger, resentment, fear, anxiety. A lot of the anxiety we're seeing in teenagers, I firmly believe, is, although they may not be able to articulate it, is a function of a deep down knowledge that they don't know how things work in the world and they really don't know what they're going to do when they get there. They've been propped up and told how much change and they're going to do, and they can't even change their own life. Like they can't even figure out how to cook themselves a meal. They can't figure out that how to feel okay driving a car. They're so nervous about that. They're just so nervous about going on a date because there's so many things they have to worry about. We are creating a nation of neurotics, and have quite a few who have borderline personality disorder to boot. Kids are assigned to things. Yes, absolutely. when cursive fails. Yeah, I couldn't read that either. If we can't read it and we know cursive, how do you think the students are doing? Think the students can read that? See the whole truth says hate can't be had as a result of living with integrity. Sai, if you have to shame and blame, there can only ever be hate as part of the outcomes. Another great point. Thank you so much for sharing. When you have to keep articulating it like that, and you aren't just teaching the children organically through literature and history and all these different lessons and just modeling it in the classroom, modeling being a decent human being, it's just words. Integrity doesn't mean anything because they've not seen it. They don't even know what integrity looks like. They all ate the Cheerios. I'm not really sure what that is. What is 4 times 15 group consensus 48? That was a video that was going around. These college age kids didn't know what it was. I bet they had education like this. Texas Sheep Lady says, you better know the successes and failures of history. Yes. How do you go about changing the world and eradicating poverty without it? And then Ego Brain says, heck no. When my son was in school at the 4th, I said no to their pics being used. I don't even have social media to put his pics on. I didn't let him have his own either, etc. This is very important. So, cameras in the classroom, well, they're there. And the teachers are taking huge license in terms of posting pictures of minor children on social media without checking with their parents if it's okay. I think that's incredibly rude. And I'll leave it at rude. So let's see. Then Michigan expat says inclusivity for everybody except the straight white male. They're responsible for everyone's problems somehow. And like I said, that's why I mentioned it. When we're going to single out women and girls, but talk about gender equality and so forth. Is that, yes, there's certain parts of the world where it is primarily the women and the girls that are not. But I really don't see them getting all up in arms about how Hamas treats women or how women are treated in Saudi Arabia or whatever. It's always the West that they look to, where we have the greatest degree of gender equality on the planet. And they're so eager to come in and tell us that we don't. Okay, now go try that in Iran. Go try that in Saudi Arabia. Go try that in Yemen. Go try that in, these other countries. Pretty sure they're not signing on to these goals, but we are. And let's see, Michigan expat says they're priming students to be manipulated and exploited 100%. So let's get back to this. So we have some more of the pictures. And then let's see, I'm going to go back up here because I want you to hear. So we talked about the agents of change, talked about how they emphasize that. This was a little video from a school board meeting last week. This is a board member of Cherry Hill Public Schools. And in this, you will hear him ask, can we have more classes practice protest, please? So I'm going to try to get it to the right place of the sound.
Think about initiatives.
Here we go.
Think about initiatives that have lots of hands-on education. There's lots of things in this world that don't require books that are really important in our learning. I want to add, can we have more classes practice protest, please? And I think it's become such a negative thing in our society. People don't respect protest. They don't respect that right, but we have that right to stand up and speak for what we believe in, and teaching children to do that in a civically responsible way. What a great thing. And think about initiatives.
So, he thinks it's a great thing to teach kids how to protest. Now let's remember, civics, you need to know how your government works, how it got the way it is, like what your rights are, what the branches of government are, what the differences between state government, county government, federal government, all these things. And then you have enough knowledge, presumably to start to engage civically to say, I want this to be changed. Probably wouldn't hurt if you knew a little thing or two about, taxation, the economy. I'm not saying you have to be Thomas Sowell, but you probably should have a better grasp on math, better understanding of the Bill of Rights, let's say, before you start protesting. Because protest is saying, I don't like this. Make it different. That's why it's called protest. Don't do this thing, or do this thing you're not doing that I want you to do. I don't want to go to bed. I want to stay up late. Okay, that's protesting. What do I want? When do I want it? Now. Engaging civically at a young age can be done, and it can even be done using the teaching of reading and writing. So, for example, you could go ahead and read your state's constitution as an example, or you could read some local bill that's being put up for to be made into a law. You could go through that, and then you could write to your representative and say whether you agree with it or you disagree with it. If you understand it well enough, pick something small. Let's write a letter, or let's write an op-ed or something. And we practice our writing, our vocabulary, we read, we like learn, ask a bunch of questions about how one specific law works. Why did they make this law? Let's look at the history of this law. And I'm still at like 8th grade at the earliest, honestly. And that could be a really good thing. That's not protest, though. And he says, people don't respect protests. No, sir. What you're saying is you don't like it that not everybody agrees with you and wants to support you using children for your political purposes. That's not the same thing as people don't respect protesters. And no, people don't respect protesters who block the road or threaten them or physically attack police officers trying to keep everybody safe and orderly. No, I don't respect people who do that, never mind if they're protesting or not. So I thought that's a board member in this district. So that, coupled with agents of change, coupled with SDG goals, coupled with 2030, et cetera, and so forth. And then we come to this young man. He's adorable. Okay, so let me be very clear for all the audience out there who wants to jump on me and say that I'm being hateful towards a Black child. He's an adorable boy. Okay, he looks, happy and proud and so on. But I'm looking at his shirt. It says, "I am Black history and Black future. I am my ancestors' wildest dream." It's a great message, right? But I wonder if that message aligns with what is actually happening in the classroom around these issues, which is a lot closer to, let me find it. Where's the Black history stuff? Okay. Which is a lot closer to this. BLM and Palestine solidarity teach-in. Okay, so these are some things that were going on that were distributed to teachers and the local parents and so forth. BLM and Palestine solidarity teach-in. First of all, what does Palestine have to do with BLM? It's curious, right? Then we have, so here's the article about Cherry Hill was the first New Jersey district to mandate Black history class. Here's how it's done. It's African American studies. We've made this course a priority. Well, it's actually a requirement. We did not want students to view African Americans from the oppressed state that is currently taught, and yet they do. They say that, but what they mean by that is not, we don't want them to see African Americans as oppressed. They didn't want them to learn the dead white man history. That's from the oppressed state. You see the difference? So we're going to teach you the Black history as written down by presumably white people. So instead, we're going to teach you Black history from the oppression narrative, because that is how it's done. And we have, they're reading books. I've seen the lists of books. I wish I could show them to you, but unfortunately they are too specific to the student's class of the parent who gave me these things, and I don't want to out my whistleblower. But the students are sitting there listening during African American history course. So again, with the Chromebooks open, this is how we learn. There's no book. There's no book. Everything they read is pulled and delivered on the internet. And so it says, in addition to teaching about Jim Crow laws that enforce segregation and marginalize Black people in the post-Civil War era, the class includes units on early African culture, art, systemic oppression. Look, systemic oppression of today, anti-racism, activism, and Black Lives Matter. It's a little different than the young man's t-shirt. I imagine that the ancestors' wildest dream was not to be sitting here in 2024 talking about this level of oppression. So that's my concern. Okay. Please don't hear me saying I don't want them to learn Black history, because I do. obviously. I just think that teaching it from this point of view, the BLM and anti-racism narrative is very negative and not uplifting, empowering, and so forth, except if what you want is for the student to become an activist. Students who organize Black Lives Matter protests, remember the ones that want to teach kids how to do, sparked by the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, blah, 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 blah. They said Black history was mostly taught in February and focused too much on slavery and only token reference to civil rights figures. Well, I agree that it shouldn't only be confined to 1 month. I agree that there should be more references to civil rights leaders, but I would like to see more reference to people like Frederick Douglass, right? And other figures from the Reconstruction era, for example, got elected to Congress. And not only the downside of the Tulsa situation and the massacre and the burning of Tulsa and the Black Wall Street, but also how it was rebuilt, about the resilience of the people who not only built it, but rebuilt it. That part's not taught. So I'd like to see a lot more taught. That's not what's happening. So you see, whenever we criticize, we being the people who look at these things and say, uh-oh, this looks like race Marxism and activism, we're not saying, don't teach about Black people. Actually, quite the opposite. We're saying, please teach about Black people and all of the achievements and success and progress that has been made in America. But when you talk about that, you're accused of apologizing for the past or of wanting to whitewash it and make it go away. No, I think the fact that it's the current success stands in such stark contrast is a testament to the talent and the perseverance and the strength and courage of the people who made that progress. I also think it helps the students see that possibility for themselves, which is a great lesson, isn't it? Things that, well, nobody's going to stand in my way, and I'm going to follow in their footsteps. I am going to follow that role model rather than think that your future is fraught with struggle and everyone wants to hold you back and nobody wants you to succeed. Why shouldn't we be showing these students that we do want them to succeed and they can? They can because it's been done. So that's my concern. And then, as I said, when you have the connection to things like this is most decidedly a protest movement. And here's some more information on it, right? Black Lives Matter at School Week. This was happening, February 1st. This was on Seattle. This was in Seattle, but this also happened on the East Coast. Now we have some more information affirming the Palestinian identity in education. The kids are getting this in the school. New Jersey school builds police relationship to curb exclusionary discipline. Now, on the surface, this seems like, well, that sounds like a good idea. We should develop a relationship with the police and, try to have the discipline, be constructive and so on. But it says changing a school's discipline-focused culture to one centered on restorative justice, compassion, and empathy. What do we mean by that? What are we talking about, restorative justice? Here it is. The IED, this is what Cherry Hill uses. Restorative discipline helps students change their behavior and improve learning. What I'm hearing from parents in this district and even some teachers is that look at this course, $279 per person, is that restorative justice, or a process where you have all the people involved in a dispute or an action, even if it was violent, sort of meet and get together and discuss and try to restore the relationship that has been damaged by the violence or damaged by whatever the issue was, is not working. It's demonstrably not working. The fights are up. Race-based fights are up. And the consequences doled out are like a couple days suspension, maybe a week suspension, if there's a consequence. And it's usually only for the most egregious things when there's a minority student involved. And if it's not a minority student, they might be suspended for posting a picture that somebody didn't like. Now, maybe they both should have been suspended. I don't know. But there is a disparity, and the disparity seems to be rooted in equity. How do we achieve discipline equity? And if they can't resolve it with a restorative justice session, then the discipline is doled out differently. So restorative discipline and restorative justice are really more about restoring some kind of equitable numbers to the discipline statistics. And it's never restore because they never were the equitable, but making the numbers fit so they can say they have achieved this or they've cut down on, you know, the discriminatory practices or racism in the district. But have they really? If kids are still fighting about these things, and they are, as I said. So I also have something to show you, which is a letter from Dr. Perry. I believe it's here. Let's see if I can bring this up. Here is the letter. This is February 7th of this year. Dear Cherry Hill High School East Community. So this is that high school I told you about. I'm writing to inform you of an altercation. I've seen the video. That was some altercation that broke out among some students during the lunch period in our cafeteria. It was a brawl. Our staff responded immediately, and the students involved are being disciplined in accordance with our student code of conduct. I cannot provide any additional details regarding the disciplinary action taken. I want to assure you that our entire staff and administration take what happened today very seriously, and we have put procedures in place to help prevent similar incidents in the future. I'd love to know what those are because these are happening on a weekly basis. We are continually working with our students to facilitate appropriate means of conflict resolution. A lot of these conflicts, you guys, are resulting like in the moment, and I can't prove that they're, of a nature that is born in these courses and these discussions and, about racial justice, social justice, religion, and marginalization, all this. I can't prove it. I wasn't there. I didn't hear the kids talking. But judging just by the demographics involved in the fights and judging by, how these things seem to result in, well, we're going to have a conversation and we're going to talk about it. I can't help but feel like a lot of the conflicts that they need to resolve are being exacerbated by the talk of social injustice. Because imagine this, you're at lunch and somebody says something and you disagree, or just somebody decides that they don't like you because reasons, or, that you have microaggressed against them or whatever. It is possible for them to consider that a sufficient conflict to take violent action. Remember, we now live in a world where we've told kids that words are violence, that words I don't like are harmful, and that we need to be very mindful of the words we say to each other. So what is the conflict resolution process? I think parents have a right to know. We are dedicated to making our students able with our guidance to come to peaceful resolutions to conflict during the school day. I'm actually more interested in the students just not fighting anymore. Whether they come to a peaceful resolution is really not my concern, even if it's my kid. I'm interested in safety, first and foremost. I'm interested in getting back to the business at hand, which is learning. That means the adults need to be adults and set some standards and have discipline that is consistently enforced. Doesn't need to be like a prison. Doesn't need to be punishment per se. Just expectations that certain things will not be tolerated and be removed from the classroom or the building if this kind of behavior continues. And if you and some of that responsibility, if not all of it, is going to reside with you, the person who fought or attacked someone. Getting you together in the room with them to have a chit chat about how you are going to like each other from now on is really a waste of both people's day and the adults involved and the other kids and so on. My daughter ended up having to spend an entire class period sitting in one of these sessions at a school, not this district, but this is restorative justice, is how they do it. Sitting there trying to resolve a relationship with someone she never had a relationship with. She wasn't even like a real focus of the conflict, but because she was physically standing nearby, she had to be sucked into this process, and it used up an entire class period, and she was behind because of it. This is too much with this focus on, all of this empathy and equity and things like that. So moving on, let me just go back. So we've talked about the restorative justice, and that's all part, by the way, of the quality education aspect of the 2030 goals. So now what I want to take you to is I want to take you to some material that they use for teaching. Because remember I said, what does it look like in the classroom? Well, the 8th graders and 7th graders as well, 7th and 8th graders right now have to do projects using this particular site, Think Along. I think the name is a little bit weird. Okay. And what they were given is they were given assignments. And I'm going to try to, so this is the website and I want to try to bring up the assignments, but because of the way I have to share screen, I'm not able to do it like at the same time because some are pictures and some are sets. So I just showed you the site that they use, but now let me grab for you what some of the topics are. Okay. So this one, all right. They have to choose a topic. And all the topics are questions. This is for what's called an individual learning project. And this is for their literature class, or their ELA class. So in other words, it's not even for social science or civics. This is for their ELA class. Would you expect to see these kind of questions in an English class, or even in a social studies class at this age, 7th or 8th grade? Look at the questions. Should we ban affirmative action in college admissions? Should student athletes be paid? Should a college education be free? Should food-related businesses be responsible for reducing food waste? Is access to water a human right? Should everyone eat a plant-based diet? Should single-use plastics be banned? These are questions the students are now going to have to research using that Think Along website that I showed you. And we'll go through that website and then you'll see why I'm alarmed. And you will, and then they're going to have to make a presentation as to what their answer is, yes or no. 7th and 8th graders. Okay. Do they know enough to do that is my question. I tend to think no, but okay. So that's part of the assignment. Let me see if I can find one of the other pictures, because there were other pictures of more of the assignment. There were a lot of different pieces of that puzzle, but I think that was it. Yeah. So that's the only one. So now let's go back to, but that just gives you a sense of some of the questions. There were more, and one of the things I can tell you, but I can't show you, is that the teacher had done something called a pre-search in their Google Classroom. I can't show it to you because then you'll see who the teacher is, and I'm not going there. The teacher gave the kids a pre-search. That means the teacher went and pre-searched for certain things and bundled them into like social justice topics, anti-racism topics, the topics in certain buckets of social justice. So the kids kind of knew what the situation was. I have to pick a topic from one of these buckets. So here's Think Along. Here you have all your topics when you open it up. Here they all are. And they go under arts and culture, Black Lives Matter. That's a topic area. The school district uses this for research projects. Civics and government, economics, education, good for middle grades, good for secondary grades, human and civil rights, science and technology, sports media, etc. Let me remind you again, it's English class, right? But all of these questions can be tied back to SDG goals. Is affordable fast fashion clothing worth the ethical cost? Should it be easier to vote in the United States? Do you really think middle school kids are ready for any of this? I know adults who would be challenged by these questions. So let's go into one and see what it says. So how about this? Should free public preschool be universally available? I think we probably know what they're. Now, I probably should tell you before we start, I should tell you what this is. Okay. So look at this, media literacy from the Center for Media Literacy. If you watched my show with Alvin Louie last week, and you should if you haven't, it explains that media literacy is basically how they are going to nudge our kids towards listening to only government-approved sources. This one, as it happens, is a a free educational service of Connecticut Public, the parent company of Connecticut Public Television and Connecticut Public Radio. Okay, PBS. Partners and funders. Always go look at that. NPR, PBS, Public Radio, the Media CML, Center for Media Literacy. Again, the purpose of media literacy is to drown out independent journalists like me. I'm not even a journalist, but independent people like me, independent reporters, independent researchers, and only go through the big brands, but most especially these guys. And the National Education Telecommunications Association, the National Education Telecommunication, this is another one. The Christine Moser Foundation, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Newman's Own. These are all the partners. Okay. Just so you understand like where this is coming from. And now we will go back to the topics. And what they get when they open one up is they give them a statement. High quality preschool, which prioritizes both children's emotional growth and skill development, has been shown by research to greatly improve their readiness. So already right out of the gate, a bunch of statements that the students in middle school are ill-equipped to challenge. Again, most adults are ill-equipped to challenge these. I've seen people say, well, it said, research shows, right? So they're going to read this, share to Google Classroom. Look how easy it is. Look how easy the teacher could just go, oh, look, share. Download the teacher guide to follow along. Use the graphic organizer to keep track of new information. Listen. Oh, look. Partisan gerrymandering. How much is too much? Really? Okay. Middle school? Since the 1960s, researchers track preschool project participants. Read. Think deeper. Contemplate. They're leading them by the nose. And all of this has been filtered through NPR and its various subsidiaries and its friends. But we're calling it research. So the kids think this is research. This is unbiased research. This is how it's done. We go to a site with think along. A little creepy, right? Think along with this, whatever. So what do you guys think about this so far? I'm going to go back through the comments and just see what's going on. Let's see. There's some stuff back. Oh, wait, I forgot. The Cheerios comment was study finds chlormequat and Cheerios at Quaker Products. What to know about oh, dear God. Oh my God, they're teaching the protest for less wing goals. Yes, it is indoctrination, but that's why I've said you're not capturing it on video footage. Let's put cameras in the classroom. We'll capture the indoctrination. Like, no, I'm sorry. The indoctrination is all over the place. You just need to look, but you have to know what you're looking at. There's not a recording that's got a smoking gun. They've been programmed to have the burdens, but not the age-appropriate actions or knowledge. And AI and sex trafficking are going to be a problem. Yes. And I'll show you some more about AI in a second. Foundation and behavior demands don't jive. Dissonance. Exactly. Deb, was great watching you on Carrie's show. You and Carrie, thank you, Rodney. I appreciate that very, very much. See the whole truth says Morgan Freeman asked if he likes Black History Month. No. See that interview. Hilarious. Right. And I'm of two minds on that. I agree with him and I agree with everyone who says they don't like it. That's my baseline position. But it's here. It's like one of those, like, we are at that point where if somebody like me says, I don't like it, even if I give the exact same reasons as Morgan Freeman, I'm a Ku Klux Klan member, apparently, or something. But if I add some nuance and say, all right, if you're going to do it, can you at least not do it in this racist way? And I'm still called names. So you can't win. There's no point in even supporting it to a point because you're just going to be called names no matter what you do. How did they even know what Palestine is? Correct. Exactly. And then $279 for the course per person. Don't forget. See the whole truth says, wow. What business should I be in, Loan Dissenter? Please tell me. I would love to know. See the whole truth. I'm totally qualified to raise your kids. See the certification from my student guru study participation. And I'm over Booner. You're not far off, actually. See the whole truth says, shrug, my generation, we're smart. Meet me after school off the property. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that we should have fights or bullying or anything. I'm just saying that kids do need to be left to their own devices to sort their own problems out and resolve their own conflicts. Adults continuing to step in with the restorative justice and let's have a confab and let's sit down and have a circle time and discuss it, and you speak and then I speak and whatever. All you're teaching is that adults are necessary to resolve conflict, maybe sort of, but it doesn't really work. So adults are annoying and they get in our way. But you know what? If we have a fight, we can get out of class. I might even get a bag of chips out of it. This is basically what they're learning. Rebecca says schools have to report the race and conflict when there's a fight. Restorative justice practices make them look more equitable, by giving or not giving consequences based on race. Yes, and that is what they are doing, and it is a numbers game. 100%. They can deny it all day long, but they go, look, fights have gone down. And I'm like, you mean because you stopped reporting the ones between kids of the wrong demo? Wink, wink, nod, nod. Because of that, nothing went down except your counting frequency. I could list lots of contemporary men and women, Glenn Lowry. Exactly. So if you're going to talk about that during Black History Month, yay. If you're not, you're just being biased. You're just using it to preach your Marxism, to race Marxism. Ego Brain says, I remember having to do meditation with someone when I was in middle school 25 years ago. I remember it just making me more annoyed with the person. Yes. Well, they're having to do that now a lot. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. Lone Dissenter says they don't even know the basic facts of the world or political, economic, or philosophical principles to appeal. They're just being taught subjectivism 100%. When you're taught something at a level like way above your ability to truly understand it, all that you can remember from it is what you felt about it and what you felt at a surface level. And I'll give you an example, and maybe you have some from your own life too. When I was a teenager, a little older than this, maybe like 13, I made the mistake of watching Nightline all the time. I don't know why. I used to also watch Face the Nation. I was a weird kid. But I would watch Nightline, which unlike Face the Nation, where they give you kind of both sides and different things, which I found fascinating. I loved Eleanor Clift, by the way. But I would watch this show, and the way that Ted Koppel would present things and the way things would be presented, a lot of with emotion and whatever. And I would end up, I don't know, 4 nights out of 5, going to my dad and saying, we gotta do something. These people, it's like, what are we gonna do? And thankfully, he just patiently, repeatedly, again and again, until he finally said, you can't watch this show anymore because it wasn't sinking in. As smart as I kind of was, the message wasn't getting through. You don't know what you're talking about, little 13-year-old, and they want you to be upset and they want you to be all. He would say things to me like this: who's we? Do we need to do something? Who's we? Well, the people. What people? Well, the government. Why? Why is it the government's responsibility to do that? Because people are suffering. People over there are hurting. There was a fire. There was a this. There was a that. There's the people on the other side of the world, and they were poor and things and stuff. And he'd say, and what would you like them to do? Well, feed them. With what food? Food. We have food. Who's we? And he would just keep going around and around. Yeah, I grew up in a house of litigators. And he would just do this. And I get super frustrated. Like, you don't care. Because kids are very in their emotions. And he would say, whether I care or not is irrelevant. But like I said, it didn't stick. Because when you're a kid, you think it's very relevant. It's relevant. You should care. And I care. And that's all that matters. But it took me years after he finally said, I'm not doing this anymore, and turn off the TV. I think I lasted like 2 weeks of this nonsense. And he finally said, I've tried and you're obviously not ready. No more of Nightline, because you're like, I can't with this. And he was right to do it. But they can't turn this off. Parents can't go in and say, I'm turning off Nightline. My kids are upset. My kids are like, they're feeling like someone's got to do something and I'm turning it off. I'm flipping the switch. They can't. It's every day. It's do a project. You fix it, kid. At least I wasn't going and saying I had to fix it. And certainly no adult in my life was saying I had to fix it. Even Ted Koppel wasn't saying that 13-year-old Deb had to fix it. He was just, it's a very serious, sad situation, blah, blah, blah. And I would, be upset. They're being told it's their job to fix it. Can you imagine where all the anxiety is coming from? I can't imagine why they're so anxious. What's happening? So my dad could turn it off. And many years later, I look back on that and I was so grateful to just have, the quiet headspace again, to not worry about what's going on in the world. Not even really sure. I think I was just curious about the world. So when teachers tell you, but they're curious, they ask to know. Kids want to know about the problems in the world. I don't doubt it. Kids are very curious creatures, but it doesn't follow they don't want to know about great literature or how money works, really, like just to run a lemonade stand or, 2 plus 2. Like it doesn't mean they don't want to know those things just because they're also, you throw something in front of them, they'll be curious about lots of different things. That's not an impetus to teach it to them. It's not. Things have a time and a place and an appropriateness. And it was good that he turned off the TV. We can't turn off 20, 30 goals in Cherry Hill. It's every day, every day. So, then, we go through with all the stuff, pre-K decades worth of studies. Do they know how to read a study? Do middle and high school kids know how to read a study? Let's look at this. Pre-K, decades worth of studies. This is from NPR, 2017. It's also 2017. Did the kids know that maybe they should be going out independently and looking for research since 2017? Or are we only allowed to use NPR? Well, we're only allowed to use NPR, but media literacy. Isn't it also odd that we're using journalism rather than an actual reading the academic journal article, which are obviously way over their head, or books? And again, why are children reading this in the first place? Why is this the topic that we have as a think along? Why? It's insane. So the whole thing of think along is along these lines, and this is what they do. Now, I also have, and I thought I brought them up or had them pulled up, some of the actual graphic organizer or one of the graphic organizers that the kids use for this so that you could see. Let's see. What do I have? More of the topics. Okay. This has, I don't know if I can do this. I can't pull these up, but they basically had a sheet that went home to the parents. And let's see if I can read it to you because I don't want to show it because it has the person's name on it. But it says, "Dear parents and guardians, starting this month, your child will begin the research process for their 8th grade information literacy project. Your child's morning RAP teacher and their team teachers will guide your child through this process. The first step in this process is selecting a controversial issue to research. Since these are controversial issues, we are asking that parents and guardians review the topics with your child and help them narrow down the list to 3 to 5 possible topics that you approve for them to research. Please use the QR codes at the bottom of the page to access the database your child is using to conduct research. We're encouraging students to find topics from the Think Along's website. However, if there's a topic they are passionate about and is not able to be researched there, please consider topics from EBSCO points of view. Please indicate the topics for which you approve in the form attached in social studies." So I guess it is social studies after all. "Your child will select the controversial issue he or she will research for the ILP. There will be no duplication of subtopics in each social studies core class. Topic selection will take place on Monday, February 5th. If this permission slip is not complete with parent signature, student will not be allowed to choose a topic." Now, ask yourself, why did they have to ask a permission slip to do a social studies project? Because they're doing controversial topics. Why are they doing controversial topics? Why don't they just do topics? And let's see if I can find, I'm going to try to find the EBSCO website, see what that looks like. Okay, let's take a look at this. This is EBSCO. Reliable information, according to whom? I wonder who's decided it was reliable. For all kinds of research. Remember going to the library? Do you guys remember when we were in school, or am I just older than dirt? Where we had to go to the library like the beginning of the year and middle school and high school, but it was especially those high school and middle school, and they would kind of go over the research process. This is the encyclopedia. Here's the card catalog. If you need something on microfiche, it's over here. Here's how to look up topics. But the reason we knew how to look up topics or choose topics is that we had learned a certain amount of information about all the main areas of study. We could formulate questions in our minds. You notice they gave them questions. These questions didn't come from the students. And I showed you one page. The parent in question showed me about 6 or 7 pages that were given to her child in this pre-search. So that teacher didn't even take their chances. And again, I wish I could show it to you, but I can't because it's all personalized with names and so on. But the teacher, that permission slip said, if they can't find a topic, this teacher didn't take any chances. Pre-searched, gave out giant list. How hard do you think it would have been to go back after you get 6 or 7 pages of questions and say, yeah, I don't want my kid doing any of the things on those lists. I have this other topic for them. And P.S., I don't want them using this site or Think Along site to do the research because I don't trust it. I don't think this is a good source. I want them using the encyclopedia, primary sources, books, etc. You think that'll fly? Remember, they want everything electronically into the Chromebook. They want them to be able to save things to their files and do things electronically. So if they say, no, I'm going to do it on paper, they're probably going to be told no. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm going to guess. We're going to nudge you into the system to make it easier. And here we have these solar grant, research databases, Black History Month. You starting to see a trend? Now, I had promised I was going to talk to you just a little bit about AI. And I wanted to do that because this district, and I thought I had saved stuff about it, but now I can't seem to find it. This district is very much into AI. And I'm going to try to find it because I put it in my bookmarks. The teacher where I showed you the first stuff here, let me go back here. The first stuff from this Dr. Fawn Fischera, she's very much into AI. Okay. And I'm going to show you what that means. But here's another thing I forgot to show you. Look at this. Use this sheet to complete the HVAC audit in your classroom or other available space in your school. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and includes all of the systems, equipment, and heat, blah, 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 in the room. It says the Department of Energy recommends 68 degrees during cooler months and 78 degrees during warm months. Now they have the kids checking up on the temperature. Take action in your classroom. Mom, you're cooling. It's too much. The climate is we're damaging the planet. Turn down the AC. Turn down the heat. I know how to audit the climate in our house because my teacher taught me how. That's definitely important for kids to learn, don't you think? Then we have this Magic School. She's very proud to be bringing responsible magic of AI into the classroom. Well, what is that, Deb? What's that all about? Well, that's this. The magic of AI to help educators with saving time. Did you think you were paying them all this money so they would actually make lesson plans and figure stuff out for themselves? Look at all the schools going by. 1,600 plus schools and district partners worldwide. Okay. So they want to save them time by giving them, there's an AI assistant for every teacher in the world, helping them teach the class. But put cameras in there because you'll record all the indoctrination just from the teacher talking, won't you? Better yet, put a body cam on the teacher so you can capture every word with perfect clarity. Is that going to solve the problem? Or do we have a bigger problem maybe with AI lessons written by who knows whom? Okay. So there's that. Let's go to our mission. At the core of teaching is interacting with the child to help them grow, a deeply human, demanding, and complex responsibility. But today, teaching requires an unreasonable amount of work behind the scenes, much of it repetitive and tedious. Oh, I'm so sorry that you find your job repetitive and tedious and there's too much work. We're a team of lifelong teachers and principals. We've not only taught in classrooms, spent countless hours behind the scenes, et cetera, et cetera. We believe teachers are irreplaceable. We've designed tools with realities of teaching. They don't have time to pour over complicated new systems, don't have time to actually read books or, assign thoughtful questions or, check up on the learning of the kids, write a test. Our teachers wrote our own tests. They don't write tests. They use AI. It's all done by AI. So you're wondering, like, why can't I find out what's going on in my kid's classroom or what's going on? Well, it's probably because it's being done by AI on a system that's attached to the Chromebook or in the system at the school, and you don't get to see it. But hey, it's all awesome. Cherry Hill thinks it's great. So this is their social media, the fastest growing platform for schools ever. Join over 1 million users, save time using AI, help lesson plan, differentiate, communicate, and more. Look at that. Celebrating innovative editing. This is all, isn't it great? Isn't it fabulous? Isn't it fantastic? So then I was looking around at an article that they were sharing. Look at this, feeling lost in the AI information overload, uncertain how to build your AI literacy. So they're teaching the kids about the AI. You can subscribe to this little newsletter to help you teach better using AI. So now do people understand why some lawmakers are saying we need to get a guidance thing in place about how they're using AI in the schools? This is why. Or better yet, let's abolish the public schools so that, parents actually have a say in how much AI is used in the school. But right now you don't. They're using it, they're going to use it, and they get to use it at their leisure. They get to use it at their leisure, however much they feel like using it. So getting back to Dr. Dawn, there she is, very excited about the goals project. There's the SDG goals, more about the goals, more about Tom. And here we are. I'm so proud to be part of this amazing group of women thought leaders and innovators, EdSafe AI Alliance. She's very big into AI, very, very big, right? And then here, this is Student Climate Challenge. See, the things are on the computer or on the screen. This is how they teach. Project-based learning engages students in meaningful learning experience. They're presenting this to the students. Imagine you're sitting in class and they go, project-based learning engages students in meaningful learning experiences. Does that mean anything to you as a sixth grader? Or are you like, whatever? Solutions-based approach that empowers students. Again, what does that mean? Can connect with units of study or club activities, aligns with climate change, New Jersey, blah, 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 blah. SDG goals, SDG goals, SDG goals. More on developing, to help inspire every child to create their best digital future. Did you know your child had a digital future? This is critical to our students' success. Project Invent. Now, listening to this, it says, join us at Project Invent and make a difference from home. Become an idea reviewer and guide young inventors in creating for social good. Don't create just to create for social good. Right? It should be for social good. There are some students, they are apparently creating for social good. Now, this killed me. This one killed me. First, I got to tell you what it is. Energy Audit, Empowered Schools NJ, keeping tabs on our team teachers' classes as they track their energy use. Students are keeping tabs on the energy use in the classroom, training them to keep tabs on your energy use at home, mom and dad. More classroom activity. Don't they look like they're learning hard? They're learning so hard. Do your bit, change your world today, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So my overarching point in all of this has been, for this entire show, that what you see at the classroom level, if you didn't have somebody like kind of going through and asking questions and pointing things out, you might be like, I don't know, they look like busy little kids, like doing a lot of work and doing stuff, and it looks like fun. And what is your problem? It looks great. And why shouldn't they work on innovations for social good? Why shouldn't they do this? Why shouldn't they do that? Well, if you think about it at like this level, okay. But obviously I don't. I'm a former teacher, I'm a parent, et cetera. I've studied this stuff. I know what is going on behind the scenes and what the SDG goals really hope to achieve. I know about degrowth. I know about decolonization. And I can see how this is nudging and nudging and nudging these kids. It's a social engineering project to get them to care, like I was caring about Ted Koppel and the problems he was presenting, and that caring and being empathetic and worrying and wanting to be an agent of change and wanting to do social good and carrying that sort of juvenile, naive, innocent, do-gooder thing, obligation to the planet as my highest purpose from age, 5, where it's kind of normal, right? I want to be good, right? All the way through to adulthood, that's their project. And they come in middle school because middle school is the age at which, as I said last week, when you're developmentally trying to individuate and figure out, who am I going to be in this world? What is my purpose? What is my identity? What do I want to do? Well, we got to come in and tell you as often and as many classes and as many venues and in as many ways as we possibly can that you need to do for others. You are part of a group, a collective. That is Marxism. That is not the American way. And it is not exclusionary. It doesn't mean that you can't go on to a career of helping people. People did for millennia. They even became nuns and priests and, all volunteers traveling the world without this. So there will always be people who see themselves as helpers and givers. And that's great when it's their choice and they use their free will to do it. It's wonderful. It's probably the best kind of giving there is. There's no resentment. There's no guilt. There's no negative emotion at all. They're called. It's a beautiful thing. But it's theirs. No one is laying it on them. And this acts like, well, that won't happen unless, and get the kids all worked up, like the climate, they have to do something. I'm going to audit the temperature. That's not necessarily true. And they make pursuing individual achievement, individual goals, kind of a dirty thing to do, or something that you can do that. It's fit it in around the social justice, though. You can play sports ball, but as long as you let boys on the girls' team. And it's okay for you to, pursue an AP class, as long as you include some social justice in the class, or you let in some students who may or may not be qualified to do the work, but, they should have a chance to get the college credit too, because reasons. The last thing I'll tell you about Cherry Hill is that in the board meeting last week, students who've been well trained stood up and asked to do away with class ranking. They want to get rid of it. Why do they want to get rid of it? Well, they say it's too stressful. It's too stressful to have a class ranking. It's too stressful. Some of them said because their parents pushed them too hard to be valedictorian. Well, that sounds like a problem of the parents and the kid. But to go to your school board and ask that they take it away from all the kids who might need that class ranking to get a merit scholarship. They might need it for some reason. Or it might be the thing that's motivating them and keeping them going during a stressful time. But if you want to take it away from them because you're stressed out, that sounds like a you problem. But we don't teach kids that. The biggest you problem they have is, how are you going to do for others? Not how am I going to mind my own business and figure out who I want to be independent of everybody else. That's a no-no. So, well, I'll finish out with some of your comments. Let's see what y'all are saying. Going back to Lone Dissenter, why the F do they keep wanting us to eat bugs? It's an excellent question. They don't want us to eat meat because climate. They went to the trouble to make a vax for food allergy to make you eat the bugs. That's why. Big money. That's true. So they teach, Texas Sheep Lady says, so they teach one group they're oppressed and expect them not to be belligerent toward the oppressors. This has always baffled me. What did they expect exactly to happen if you do anti-racism? Why wouldn't a person who's told they're oppressed by someone who looks like the kid sitting next to them in class feel resentment towards that person? I just had somebody today on this very channel send me a message of like, you need to be held accountable and you're the blah, 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 the racist, and you should apologize and this and that and the other. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work this way in 2024 and you don't get to have your opinion. I'm like, actually I do. That is exactly how it works. And you don't get to tell me I can't. And guys, if there's one thing to tell you and you need to pass to your kids is that they're not learning that. They're not learning that other people don't have power over them to tell them to shut up or to apologize for something they didn't think they did wrong. But these young women who were writing to me, and I'd put them at somewhere in their late 20s, early 30s, were absolutely flabbergasted that I didn't want to make a full public apology for my Target post. All it did was made me want to double down and post it again. Be honest with you, I'm not going to do that, but because I have better things to do with my time. But they're amazed. Why aren't you doing what I want right now? I don't live for you. That's why. See the Whole Truth says, yeah, and that resulted in the failed state of South Africa, right? Okay. Lone Dissenter says they don't even know the basic facts. So we read that one before, didn't we? Oh, here. Even the name think along suggests groupthink. What happened to plain old regular thinking as opposed to think along? That was my first reaction. I saw think along and I went, groupthink much? Hive mind? Borg? Right? Struggle session middle school. That's what it feels like to me. We're going to audit your temperature in your room. See the Whole Truth says, Lone Dissenter, yes, Charles Wallace, now get with the rhythm, bounce in time. So ELA, Texas Sheep Lady, is English Language Arts, and I was incorrect. I think the parent initially told me there was an English assignment. I got it confused because there are some books that they're reading that are also really like the list of books, which I'm not allowed to show you yet. In a future show, I'm told that I can show you the list of books, but we have to let some time pass. Again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to protect my whistleblowers. I'm trying to protect my people who've given me stuff so that it's not so easy to connect the dots of which parent is doing this, because there is backlash if parents complain. So here I'm in North Carolina complaining on behalf of the parents of Cherry Hill who don't like this. And believe me, there are many of them. They just are afraid to speak up, which in and of itself is very, very sad. So, okay, See the Whole Truth says, we didn't start the fire playing in my head. Yep, I agree. Texas Sheep Lady says the curriculum is child abuse. I think so. I've said that before. People are like, you're crazy. I think this is abusive, laying these adult responsibilities on kids. Turning the kids into climate narcs, yes. Brown shirt training programs disguised as education, obvious history lesson. Yeah, this, you can't do what they're doing and present material this high above them that triggers their emotions and then tell them it's their job to fix it and let them do these like really raw, rudimentary, kind of half-assed projects, honestly. They really are. And then not have the kids come out just frustrated out of their minds when they realize the real world doesn't work that way. And if you ever had to go to work with someone who's like a recent grad and they don't understand why just slapping together a PowerPoint presentation with misspellings and whatever is not good enough, where do you think they got the idea that it was? Kids are showing up in college doing work of this level, and they're being told, this is fabulous, by their professors. So they're carrying it through. Not all the professors, but there are some who are just carrying it on through, depending on the subject, especially in the humanities and the social sciences. And then they get out into the world and they're like, if they're lucky, they just keep getting told how fabulous they are for doing nothing. And then eventually they run into somebody who wants them to actually perform, and bad things happen. Or bad things happen to the rest of us because they need to perform and they don't, and we all lose. Texas Sheep Lady says the operative word is along, not independent study. That is correct. It's called Independent Learning Project. Is there anything independent about that? There's nothing independent about it. They're spoon feeding it like at every turn. The only thing independent is we're not going to do this as a group. That's what they mean. When your student gets an assignment that has independent ILP, whatever at the beginning of it, they just mean this is going to be one of the rare occasions. I don't take kids who basically are not good for much of anything and stick them with a couple of kids who maybe are good for something because they're assigned to their groups. And, they're going to do a PowerPoint while the other kid watches, and then we're going to clap for all of them equally and say, project-based learning, group learning. It's so great. They learned how to make a PowerPoint presentation, maybe, if that. The information is not going to stay inside their heads. Watch that Daniel Buck interview. It explains it in detail why it does not work. Please watch that. That will explain to you the ins and outs of why it doesn't stick. See, the whole truth is I don't think they're clued in on just how many jobs are gone due to AI. No. And when they're going to come out like this, the most they can hope for is to get paid to wear VR and produce data about their sensations and their responses to things. I don't know what they're going to do. They're not going to go out and be your next great inventor, that's for sure, or scientist, not with these basics. And I don't even think they're going to be much use as fast food workers. They won't have any patience. They won't have any like actual ability to do work. Think about the work that we did just to take notes. Okay, turn my book. I got a clean piece of paper. I got my pen. I got to remember to bring a pen, and it has to work. And then, I got to ask somebody to borrow a pen or make sure I have enough supplies. All right, now I'm going to sit. I listen. I got to write down the notes. I read the underline, write the note. This is work that you're independently doing to get the knowledge from wherever it is to a place where you can remember to study it later because your working memory with all the distractions isn't going to sponge it all in there. So you're like, okay, I got to take it down. The teacher's instructing, maybe ask a question, get the answered, whatever. Maybe you do work with your peers and you do a little project, but you have to do like a little small bite-sized thing, not let's solve the planet, problems. But all that is work. It builds neural pathways in your brain of terms of stamina. You have to read a book, turn a page. Remember, go to the next page, read a whole chapter, write answers to questions, write an essay about it. I have to remember what I just read because I now have to produce something from what I just read right away. Your stamina, your vocabulary, your grammar, all of these things. I've seen young adults who say, oh, I didn't spell that wrong. That was Grammarly. Spell check did that. I've tutored students, high school seniors, honor students. They'll have misspellings and grammar mistakes in their essays. I'm like, all right, well, you have to fix the grammar. Oh, I didn't do that. Grammarly did that. Oh, did Grammarly. Okay. So pretty soon the teacher's going to go, I didn't do that. The AI did that. And that's where we are. See, the whole truth is this year has been the final nail in so many jobs. Yes, for sure. What happened to snitches get stitches? No, they're encouraged to be little rats on the adults. That's the whole Maoist thing being trained into them. They all seem to like only indoctrination. Yeah, all of this is. See, I've shifted lately from calling it indoctrination because indoctrination takes very specific, concrete ideas and says like, this is so, believe it. And so things like we need to pursue social justice, white supremacy is systemic, yada yada. That's indoctrination, where you're just taking a preformed concept, no context, no background, no challenge, whatever, and just feeding it to the kids over and over and again until they believe it. They believe it. That's indoctrination. What this is not that. That's the lens, sort of like the belief system that we're indoctrinating gets done through the social engineering. And usually by the time they get to this level, the indoctrination's already happened. The kids in 6th grade already believe that social justice is the most important thing in the world. Or they're deeply cynical and they don't believe that, but they certainly don't know what is. There are plenty of kids out there going, oh my God, here we go again. That happens. Of course it does. Of course it does. They see the teachers bright-eyed like, so class, we're going to talk about solving climate change and hunger today. And there's always those few kids that go, oh man, right? But they're wasting their time. They're sitting there listening to all this drivel or doing these stupid projects just to get the checkbox or the grade. And it's not like anything else is happening for them. Right? So they're being conditioned socially to just put up with crap. I heard stories so often when I lived in Austria in the 80s and I would travel and I'd meet people from East Bloc countries. I would hear so many stories. They even had a whole genre of comedy around it where they sort of mocked their apathy. They mocked their malaise and their sort of like cynicism with this sort of Soviet model of this is what is important. And maybe this was, oh, yes, very important. I see how important. Let me go wait on the bread line, right? I mean, so yes, those people exist and even exist in middle school. That doesn't make it okay. They're just being taught to put up with it. And Manalula says, in my school, the kids won't do anything. They won't do any of their assignments. And when they do, it's illegible, even if it's done in a Google Doc. There are no conventions of formatting. That's correct. What are they learning here? Nothing. They won't read. Of course they won't. And you saw those kids. Look at the text, the block of text on the screen. Do we really believe they're reading it? I don't think they can read it. I really don't. But then the teacher's like, well, we're reading this and we're reading that and we're doing this and we're doing that. And like, no, we aren't doing jack. You got a bunch of kids sitting in a room, maybe reading, maybe not, probably not, and certainly not understanding vocabulary like what I showed you, because even I am sitting there going, what do you guys mean by that? I'm not seeing a definition. So anyway, LOL, Deb, no apologies. Nope. I'm going on my no apology tour. I should really just make a t-shirt that says sorry, not sorry. And there you go. You can't struggle me and we'll be done. Well, guys, that's basically my one district profile. I wish I could have shown you more very specific, discrete examples, but what I wanted you to do is learn that in your district, you need to familiarize yourself inside out and backwards with your district's website. Check their DEI policy, their equity policy, all that. Look for, under the academics, look for like, what do they use for resources? What are their materials? Look at the calendar. What are they celebrating this week? What are they promoting? What are they having assemblies about? Get familiar with what they promote and celebrate and do whatever, since they're not letting you in the class, in the building much anymore to look at things, try that. But since they aren't letting you in the building, social media is where it's at, baby. Go over to X. If you don't have an X account, sorry to say, make one for the sole purpose of following these teachers and following what they're doing. Chances are your district looks very similar and the teachers probably look very similar. Check that social studies teacher, check that ELA teacher, middle school and above, very, very important. But also look at what I showed you from elementary school. Today, we talked about our lunch and whether we should feel bad about our lunch and how we make other people feel good about their lunch. Oh my God. So look closely at what they promote and celebrate, because what you can extrapolate from that and infer from that is what's going on roughly 80% of the time in school. They're not putting up stuff about today we learned phonics, okay? Because this is what they're doing more. And they're super excited about it. They're so excited about it. They think they're doing good. And that's how you check up on them. You don't need to spend millions of dollars in a brand new camera system to watch and listen. You're just going to see this, but with sound. You don't need to do that. There it is. Okay. Do that for your own district, social media. Then when you find, and the assignment comes home. We're going to use this website. They always tell you, we're going to use this website. We're using this thing where here's the materials. Look at the bottom. Look at the print at the bottom of the print of the little sheet that comes home. I think there was one more. I did want to show you this one thing because I think it was a really good example of one little sheet. Now I got to find the dang thing. Hold on. It was one little lesson or sheet for little kids. And it blew my mind because it was just so overt what they were showing, what they were doing for the littles. No, I can't find it. Oh, I'm so sorry. I get sent so many things, and then let me see if I can open it up from my text messages. But look in the bottom of those little printouts that they send home in their folders, and see if you can find the company that made it, and look up that company, and look at their website, and look at their about section, and look at their funders, and you'll see patterns. Bill and Melinda Gates. Oh, there's Bill and Melinda Gates. Oh, look, it's Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, look at that. It's the such and such, whatever. All right, here's a couple more. I'm going to go ahead and share to my computer, and then I'll be able to pull them up. And let's see. Where's that little kid assignment? I really want to show you this one because I couldn't believe this. They're handing this out to kids. Oh, yeah, here we go. It's called the Great Kindness Challenge. All right, so there's a couple things I've got. One of these screens comes from that same teacher that I told you about. All right, here's the Great Kindness Challenge. Let me grab this. All right. Excuse my lack of production skill here, but there are just so many things. All right. So here's the image, the Great Kindness Challenge, Junior Edition, Acts of Kindness. And it says a Kids for Peace experience. Remember I said at the bottom, there'll usually be like the name of the company that made it. Look for that. Then you go, it says kidsforpeaceglobal.org. Kidsforpeaceglobal.org. Let's go find kidsforpeaceglobal.org. This is what you have to do, guys. If you're wondering, like, how's the sausage made in the world of Deb? This is how. Kidsforpeaceglobal.org. And okay, so we have, invite a new friend to play, do all the things, create your own kind deed. And you might say, Deb, what's the problem? What is the big deal? Don't we want our kids to be kind? Well, sure. But what happens when you call stuff out like this much? Did you grow up to be a jerk because you didn't have Kids for Peace, global.org worksheets? Did you grow up to not know how to be nice to people? You're like, oh, bummer. If only I'd been given a worksheet, I'd be a nice person. So here it is, uplifting our world through love and action, kindness certified programs, the Peace Pledge, global friends, global citizenship, 2030 agenda. You starting to catch on? You start to kind of see the trends. Okay. So those are just the last things I want to show you because we've been going for a long time, but that's how it's done. That's what you have to do. You don't need cameras. You just need you to look at what's hiding in plain sight in your kid's Chromebook or your kid's folder or what's coming through the email from the teachers. And for the love of all that is holy, when you get emails from your kid's teacher, read them, flag them, open them, read them twice. Make sure you understand everything they mean. If there's something that asks for your feedback or asks for a permission or asks for something, don't just let it go or put it aside to the next day. Like, think it through, get more information, ask more questions. If there's anything you don't understand, don't just go, well, all the other kids are doing it, so I guess it must be fine. If you don't understand what learning goal it achieves, ask. Ask them. Hi, thanks so much for your email. I'm really interested in what my child is learning in your class. I love that you're keeping me abreast of what's going on. Can you help me understand this assignment and what it's designed to help my child learn? How can I support you in the goal to help my child learn that skill or competency? If you're really clever, you'll volunteer as like, oh, so you're teaching about character and such and such and such. There was a wonderful book that I read as a child that did that for me, and I would like my child to read that for the free reading instead of the book list that you've provided. Is that okay? I think that they should read that, and they've expressed an interest in reading that book. Is that going to be all right with you? See what happens. That's what involved looks like. Involved doesn't look like, I don't like this book that's in the library, and I go to the school board and I yell. I mean, it's a little bit involved. It's not nothing. This is involved. Who are these people? Where do they come from? What do they do? Where's the teacher getting the lesson plan? What do you do all day? Are you on your Chromebook all day? What have you written lately? Can I see some of your writing? Tell you what, here, do me a favor. Read this for me. Read this out loud. See right here. Okay, read. I don't have to be so antagonistic about it, but can you do me a favor? Could you read the instructions? I'm trying to I'm trying to make this recipe, but I have to get the ingredients. Could you just read for me what the recipe says there? Read that at the top. Yeah, start at the top. Can you read it aloud? And I'm going to go to the pantry. You could be clever about it. Figure out if your kid knows how to read all by yourself. You're smart. You can do it. So that is, what is this? Texas Cheap Lady says, congratulations, see the whole truth. May the children learn good things. Teach your child to read in 100 lessons. Yes, great book. Great book. Bob is here. Hi, Bob. Bob says, Make America Great Again was an example of covert white supremacy. The phrase is ranked on a pyramid just below lynching, hate crimes, the N-word, and racial slurs. Well, it would certainly describe that way. I don't agree with that. But I do think that Make America Great is one of those terms, one of those loaded language terms like Black Lives Matter, like school choice, like all of these, where we make up a statement. We use a phrase that puts people who disagree with what it actually represents. Now, if Bob thinks it represents white supremacy, that's what he thinks. If somebody else thinks it, I just don't like it because it's kind of, I don't know, it feels a little jingoistic, whatever. Okay. Whatever your reason is for not liking it. If you say, like, yeah, I'm not MAGA, I'm not the whole make America great thing. Oh, so you want America to not be great? You don't like America? Is that it? You're not a patriot? It's the same as when you say, I don't buy into Black Lives Matter. I'm not down with that. Oh, so you think Black lives don't matter? This is a thing they do now. Political organizations, political movements. We're going to name the thing a thing that the opponents, even the good faith opponents who don't like all the components of it, what it represents, can't oppose because it'll sound like they oppose something good. They'll sound like they oppose something that 99% of society would agree with. And therefore they will other themselves and we don't have to do anything about it. And, MAGA is one of those, Black Lives Matter, all these, that is a loading of the language and they do it. It's something about politics right now that I absolutely despise and I won't do it. See the Whole Truth says, yes, Grandma or Uma is multi-language writer, master, world-class editor, publisher. The 3 and 4-year-olds are already melted. By the way, multilingual children, if you can get your kids to be multilingual in the young grades, one argument for homeschooling, if you're not a bilingual family, you can have your kids learn a second language more easily, actually have more neural pathways and are better able to retain information, that they learn new information than kids who are only have one language. There are so many good reasons. Also, learning cursive does the same thing. So, okay. So then Bob says, no, it's part of the pyramid I linked that was part of a school's curriculum. Oh, okay. So you must have put a link in up above or something. Okay. I must have missed the link. But anyway, but Bob, no harm, no foul. Like, even if you had thought that, okay, even if you thought that it was covert, whatever, like, different opinions are welcome here. That's totally fine. There are people who think that. I don't think it, but there are people who do. And the simple fact is, whether they're right or wrong, in America, we should be able to have these conversations and say why we think a thing and discuss it and not have the name of the thing make that impossible. And what we do with our kids, kids for peace. So what if you were against one of these assignments? Are you against peace? What's wrong with you, parents? You don't want them to do the Kids for Peace assignment? No, I'm okay with peace. And I obviously want my kid to be a peaceful kid. I just would like my kid to learn to read and not spend all their time on all this other stuff. We don't need this. So that's kind of my point. Can you pull up the pyramid is ridiculous? I missed the link. So I apologize. If you shared a link, maybe I'll scroll back. Did I miss it somewhere? Was it in my material? The pyramid is ridiculous. If you could drop the link, because I missed that. Where was the pyramid? Does anybody else remember? Now I'm not even seeing your comment again that mentioned it. It was an example of cover. The phrase is ranked on a pyramid just below lynching, hate crimes, N-word. Was it in one of the classroom things? It must have been in one of the classroom pictures. And now I'm confused. So I'm going to go back and see if I can bring it up again. That must be what he's talking about. So I'm going to go through and look for these and see, or maybe it was in one of the Black Lives Matter things. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that they use a lot of Black Lives Matter materials in this school district, like a ton. They have black at school curriculum team for Black and Palestinian solidarity. They have all kinds of, let me show you this thing. This is something, maybe Bob has shared it or so. It's not letting you post it. I don't know why it won't let you put a link in there. I'm really sorry about that. No clue why that's happening. But what I can show you is this right here is a resource that is a channel that indexes source material, educational resources, and lesson recommendations that correspond to the principle of globalism. To put globalism in practice, BLM at school proposes blah, 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 blah. This district uses these. I know because the parents sent it to me, pulled from resources that they use. So look at all of this. This stuff is finding its way into the classrooms. Look, there's Black Palestinian solidarity. This is all coming into the classroom of these schools. Coloring sheets, 2024 Week of Action playlist, empathy and loving engagement, collective value and globalism, unapologetically Black. This is Black Lives Matter in the classroom, which this school does. Restorative justice, a song that makes you feel safe. Feelings, 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 feelings. Always, at all times. And what better way to get people focused on these SDG goals and to get them up in their feelings all the time? Because if you thought rationally about any of them, you would realize what an insane, control freakish, megalomaniacal thing it is to do, to decide that a few stakeholders that you never met, far, far away from you, are going to transform the world for all of us, for all. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Lone dissenter. Coloring pages she showed they're going to color Hamas doing what they did to Israeli women. One wonders, doesn't one? So that's what I have for you today for this Dissident Dispatch. Again, I'm sorry it was like a little disjointed with the sharing of stuff. It is a huge challenge to try to figure out what to present in what order. But as I said, I wanted to just give you a snapshot profile of one district, how it shows up and how it's embedded in everything they do to a level of importance that these kids cannot possibly walk out of the school unaware of their responsibility to save the world and their responsibility to be an agent of change or be extremely apathetic and sort of, like, well, that's not going to work. So I got nothing else going on and just stare at their phone. There's nothing in the middle. All right. Thank you so very much. As always, I would ask that you please, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, like and share this broadcast so others can watch the replay. If you're watching on the replay, thank you. Please consider joining either my support group at The Reason We Parent, which is under wokescreen.com, and you'll find it under communities, or that's a support group, meets twice a week for parents to just kind of like help figure out your own school. So if you watch this and you said, Deb, I can't make heads or tails, I went and looked, but I don't know what I'm looking at. Can you look at it from my school on the other side of the country or whatever, in the middle of Kansas or someplace? Join the group and share your screen or share some stuff and I'll help you. That's what the support group is for. If you want to just support me and my work and be part of a general community in general, you can join wokescreen.com/the reason we learn and get access to resources and a couple of private webinars a week that I do, one about homeschooling, one about culture and stuff that are private. And I do them live, but you can tune in live when I have them on Mondays and Fridays, or you can watch the replays through my resources links through the Discord. It's a private Discord. These are ways you can support me, and I greatly appreciate it because it does help me do this work. And it, every little bit helps. There are t-shirts in my store. If you want to buy one of the many t-shirts that have little sayings of things that I've said and things that I've written, they're out there too in the store. Reason We Learn at it's wokescreen.com/the reason we learn. And there's a store link there. So thank you guys so much for sticking with me and for being here. Oh, wait. Bob has the link. Hold on. Since he went to the trouble to get it, I want to see if I can bring this up. It says delete the stars. See if I can get it. It's a PDF. And I want to see if we can look at this. Oh, why won't it let me? Okay. I'm going to do this. I'm like, absolutely. I've just gone through my whole sign off. And here we are again. Okay. All right. Judicial Watch. PDF. Okay. Please let this open. It opens. Yes, it does. Okay. Got it. Thank you, Bob. So I think I've seen this thing before, Bob. Um, so here it is. What is systemic racism? Yes, I have seen this before, this particular pyramid. This thing right here, if you can see it. Oh, it won't let me do it. But see, overt white supremacy, socially unacceptable, covert white supremacy, and they have, students write your response. This kind of thing is given to students. Systemic racism, an article. Pear deck, interactive slide. These kinds of things are given to our students, along with intersectionality charts. It's absolutely insane. And I think what Bob was talking about is that Make America Great is on this. Where is it? We have Confederate flags. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Make America Great. There it is. Right below the line. See? And it says socially unacceptable. And then this is socially acceptable. According to whom? According to whom? Who made this? Right? So things are going on in the school, but this is going to be in a Chromebook, or this is going to be done in that kind of covert way. It's not something you're going to capture on video. You got to go in the dang Chromebook. You've got to look in the Google Classroom, and you have to have access to it. So yeah, this has been out there. This pyramid has been out there for years. In fact, you can find, if you go right now to Google and you Google white supremacy pyramid, all right, you'll get like dozens of versions of this. This is but one version. If you Google intersectionality chart, you'll get dozens of versions of the chart. And teachers do exactly that. They go out there and they Google, they go to Teachers Pay Teachers, they go to all kinds of resources that are referred to them by other teachers, and they get this information and they feed it to your kid. It's in the Chromebook, in the Canvas, in the Google Classroom. They're not talking about it. They're not standing in front of the room and going, and now children will talk about white supremacy. They say, go do your assignment. And the kids are left to fend for themselves on this. And then maybe what they'll say is, so what did you learn about how much racism there is in our culture? Oh my God, there's a lot. It's really scary and terrible. We need to do better. What are you going to do better? Well, I'm going to go protest and I'm going to march to Black Lives Matter. It's like, oh, okay, that's great. But it's coming out of the mouth of the kid. What did you learn? I learned this. What are you going to do better? I'm going to do this. Can you make a case that the teacher did that? Because they'll turn around and go, oh no, that the children have these questions. The children see it. It's their real life. It's their struggle. It's their day-to-day. It's their lived experience. That's the Freirean model. I'm going to surround you. It's embedded in your math problems. And then when you say it, well, the kids brought it up. The kids brought it up. We just said there was poverty. We just said there was discrimination. We just said racism exists. We said the socially acceptable thing to say. The kids put the rest together because we, marinated them in, struggle literature and group projects and SDG goals. So, okay. So Bob says, this reminds me of Ben Boyce describing the emotional toll he had going to Evergreen. I'm so glad you said this. I say this kind of thing a lot, and a lot of people roll their eyes and they think I'm sort of overstating it. But I do believe this is abusive, because the kids don't have the wherewithal, the knowledge, the vocabulary to say, can you back off? Can you shut it off? Like I said, I was lucky. I had my dad to tell me, I'm turning this off. This is affecting your mental health. You're afraid and scared and angry and frustrated, and you want to fix things that aren't yours to fix. And this is not, you need to not be watching Nightline anymore. Cut it out. Parents can't do that for these kids. And the teachers, the adults in their life are going, more, here, have more, be more upset, be more responsible, feel more frustrated. And Bob's exactly right. It takes an emotional toll. There's a reason they're so depressed and they're so anxious, and it's school. Let's see. See, the whole truth is, and let's think as well about the problem child being given a top 10 list of how to be the most abrasive and inciting. Yes. How do I do that? Well, it's pretty dang easy. All right. Now that I've kept you guys here forever and a day, it's almost 2.5 hours, but best audience ever. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bob, for getting that pyramid to me. Please, people who are, supportive of MAGA in the audience, don't think that I'm agreeing with the pyramid. I am just saying that there are people who believe that, who are in good faith. I don't necessarily agree with them, but the problem is we can't have a conversation with them. Like, I'll give you an example from my own life. I have said to people, while I do want to make America great again, of course I do. I do, and I do believe it is great, and it was even greater when I was a kid. But I don't like the slogan, and I don't consider myself MAGA because of some of the other things that go with it. But when I have said that, I'm torn to shreds. Torn to shreds. So it works both ways. And that's why I don't like this kind of language, and I don't think we should use it around children because they don't know how to parse it. If we have trouble, imagine them. Anyway, thank you everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and your week. I will be back I'll be live on Friday afternoon with a teacher. I have an actual teacher coming in to talk to me about her experiences in Arizona, some of the stuff that went on and everything. I'm super excited to talk to her. She has her own YouTube channel as well. And she is going to come in, and I'll give you all the deets soon in the community when I make the show. But I'm really excited because I love to talk to actual teachers who've been on the front line, and they can give their own voice to what's happening currently. And I think that will drive the point home. So thanks a lot. Have a great everything. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.